So a lot of horror games take the more cinematic route with cutscenes, and I personally think having cutscenes in your game really brings it to another level of professionalism, and they look really good when done right. So we'll use UE4's very powerful sequencer to do this. If you've been using UE4 for more than a couple of years, as of 2020, you might be a little more familiar with the Matinee, which has been discontinued as of, I'm not actually sure which engine update discontinued them, but it is now the sequencer. So if we go to our content browser, make a new folder called sequences, we can create our sequences in here. So we'll make a new one by going up here to cinematics and pressing add level sequence, and we'll just choose our sequences folder. And I'm going to call this LS for level sequence enemy reveal, because we'll make it just revealing that an enemy is in the back room, something like that. And let's make another room in the back here to show that we are revealing our enemy. Alright, and we have another room. I'm actually going to put lights in this room so we can see, so I'm just going to grab some of these lights and bring them in there. Let's change this back to lit, and that looks good enough. So what I'm thinking what will happen to create this sequence is when we get to the doorway, it's going to start a cutscene, and let's just have a door open and our enemy be behind it. So let's search for door. We're just going to get the door frame right here. We don't need the actor. Let's get the door to go with it. Something real simple. And even though this is a see-through door, well, let's just go ahead and put our enemy behind it. So let's just go into mannequin animations, and let's just get the idle animation and put it right behind the door. So it's kind of funny because we will already very clearly be able to see that our enemy is behind this door, but this is just to show you how the cinematic will work. Oh, I wonder who's behind the door. That's hilarious. Okay, but let's get this sequence good and ready. Oh, this is not centered. There we go. Okay, so let's go to our sequencer here, and we want to create a camera. So we can click on this button right here, create a new camera, and set it as the current camera cut. And now we are controlling our camera, where it says pilot active right here. We are actually looking through the eyes of the sequenced camera right now, so we can place it the same way we just place our preview camera. And I don't actually prefer to do it this way. I'd rather move it myself. So I'm just going to hit this little eject button, and now we can see the camera right here, and we can move it like this, which is how I prefer. If you eject it but you want to go back into it, you can just right click and select pilot Scenic Camera Actor, and we are once again piloting it. We can also pin the view right here. So if I hit that pin button right there, I can select other things, and this view will still stay here. And I like to do that while working with a sequence, so I always know what the camera's view is looking like. So what I'm gonna do is put this in its starting position. So I'm gonna set all the rotations back to 0, or I'll change the Z to 180. So first thing I'm gonna do, which is totally optional, is I'm gonna uncheck constrain aspect ratio. And what this is gonna do is keep the aspect ratio the same as your screen. If this is checked, it'll force it to be 16:9, which is what we have selected right here. And if your computer isn't that exactly, it will add black bars on the top and bottom to keep it at 16:9. I'm going to prefer it to not have that and just adapt to the size of our screen, so I'm going to uncheck it, but it's totally up to you. There isn't one that's necessarily better than the other. We can also do a few cool things like look at tracking settings. And if we enable this, it will always track where we want it to. And I want to track an actor. The actor I want to track is this idle animation right here. So if I click on this little eyedropper and choose the idle, our camera will always track the idle. See how it rotates when I move it around? If you look down there, it's always tracking the idle animation, which is the origin's at its feet, so it looks at its feet. But that's just something cool you can do. I might actually change this to the door. Door is also at its feet, never mind. So that's something cool you can do. I'm going to turn that off, but I am going to turn this on with the focus settings. So right now focus is manual and everything is in focus, but if we want to make it a bit more cinematic, I can change this to tracking and choose to track the idle third person idle right here, and that'll track the depth of field so that the character will always be in focus. Or I think it might actually be smarter to do the door, so I'll track it to the door. Anyway, I won't spend too much longer going over all these settings you can change. Let's go over to how to actually make this cutscene. So I'm gonna reset this rotation, which got a bit messed up while tracking the animation. And what we can do is turn on automatic keyframes. So once automatic keyframes is turned on, everything we do in terms of moving the camera will be recorded. So you got to be careful with it, but it also makes it easier than just constantly hitting the keyframe button. So it is up to you. So let's put it in its starting position, and let's turn on automatic keyframes with this button right here. So now that it's selected, it'll create a keyframe every time something is changed. So I'm going to get it into its starting position. I'm going to aim it at the door, and then I'm going to kind of rotate it down, bring it maybe a bit closer, and let's add our first key manually under camera component transform. If transform isn't there, you can, under camera component, you can hit track transform and it should come up. Then I'm going to go ahead a few seconds, maybe at 90 frames, and I'm going to bring it up to the door and rotate it up maybe a bit closer. Okay, that looks good, and we can see kind of the line happening here of our track. And then at this 3-second mark, I think, we wait just a little bit and the door should swing open. So we have our door right here, and if the door is not showing up, then you can just select it, right click, actor to sequencer, and the selected actor should show up. I'll select something else to show you, actor to sequencer, add floor 20, and then it'll pop up. And we're going to go ahead and delete that, and I'm going to delete the third person idle because we don't need that either. So once we got our door, we want to track its transform as well. We're only going to be tracking its rotation, so let's create a keyframe for rotation right here, and go ahead a couple frames and rotate it 90 degrees. And since we have automatic keyframes turned on, it automatically creates a frame right there. You have to create your own keyframe first, or else it won't record. So the first one has to be manual. Just want to be clear about that. So now I'm going to click here again. I'm going to pin this again because it became unpinned. And if we just scroll through and we just watch the little preview up there, it goes in, and then the door swings open to reveal, well, quote unquote reveal our character. Then we don't want it. We don't want it to just stand here for this long, so I'm going to go ahead a few frames, and I want it to end right here on 125, so I'm just going to drag this down here to 125, and we have our sequence. If you click on these playback options, you can also set it right here. and choose the playback speed. And we can also just play it just to test it in full time. Great, it's good enough. We can add more things like a fade track. So if you click track, you have these options. You can choose fade track like this. Maybe we want it to start at like 116. So we will add a keyframe with it at 0, and then to 125, we will increase this up to 1, which puts it to black. And if we want to see it in action, we can hit render this movie if we want to output it like that, but I'm not going to do that right now. If you want to add stuff like audio, you would just add an audio track right here. But I'm gonna cut short on all the things we can do in this sequence here and show you how to actually implement it into the world. So if we go back into the content browser, sequences, we have this sequence now. And we're gonna duplicate this trigger box. We're just gonna have it work the same way as the jump scare, where it triggers when you overlap this box. So when you get to the middle of this room, it'll do it. So if we go to our level 1 blueprint, blueprints, open level blueprint, and we can just right click, add event, collision, add on actor begin overlap of the trigger box 2. We will create a level sequence player. And the level sequence we want to play is the enemy reveal, which is the only one we have. And if you want to mess with the settings, we can make. And then we have things like looping, play rate, start offset, random start time, etc. And we actually do want to do a couple of these. For example, you can hide player, which if we had a player mesh, it would be hidden. It's good to just have that in general so our camera doesn't overlap with it. We can hide the HUD as well, which will get rid of our HUD when we play. And we could pause at the end, but we're not going to do that. We can also disable our movement and our look input, which we do want. And I think those are all the things we want to do right there. All right, after that, we want to actually play the level sequence, because similar to widgets, just creating it will not play it. So let's hit, we're at a return value, we'll hit play. And after we play it, we want to get a reference to the trigger box and destroy it. So that we can't call the cinematic more than once. So let's test this out. Where are we? Everything is completely dark. I don't know why. Oh, everything was completely dark because in the sequencer, I had this way at the end of the fade track, which we don't want. And we still had the record button on, the trigger box was added, and so was keyframes for its transform. So we don't want that, so we will delete it. We will uncheck this. It's a good lesson to learn. I still make that mistake all the time. And that's why this option is a little dangerous, because it'll record everything. But yes, and then we will save it. So we can just go ahead and close the sequencer now, hit play, and we should be good to go. So first we'll get hit with the jump scare, right? And now when we go across the trigger box, which we can't see, in the middle, oh, flashlight ran out, the sequence should start. And there we go. Our sequence played. We once again have control of our character. And you'll notice a couple problems. One, the HUD did not actually go away, despite us choosing the hide HUD button. And two, the door opened, but then the sequence ended and the door is now shut again. So we gotta fix these things. So if we open up our sequence again and open up our door, go to transform and right click in this path right here, go to properties, and we have to choose when finished, keep state. You can do this for anything in the sequencer. For the fade example, if we kept the state, it would stay dark, like completely black after we were done, which is something we don't want. We could keep the state of the camera actor, which would keep it in this position, but it doesn't matter because we won't be viewing it again. And lastly is the door, which we are keeping the state. So now if we hit save, and we try it again, we'll get jump scared first, right? And then the sequencer starts, the door opens, it fades out, and the door stays open, which is great. Now, the lastly is that the HUD still stays on the screen. Sadly, we will have to do it manually. So what we can do is after we play, but before we destroy the actor, we'll have to hide the HUD from the character. And we have to cast to the character to get that. But let's do this in the beginning. So cast to L1 character. And the reason we're doing this in the beginning is we can set the object to other actor on actor begin overlap. So not only does it take it from the overlapped actor, but taking it from this path guarantees that everything after this will only be called as long as only the actor overlaps with the trigger box. We could do the same with the first trigger box that we do for the jump scare. Cast to L1 character. And that way, if there's any type of physics objects that rolls to the trigger box, it won't be triggered. It'll only trigger if our character goes through it. So as L1 character, we will just get the main HUD ref and set visibility to hidden. And then we will wait the duration of our sequence. So out of the create level sequence player, we can get duration, and we want to get the frame duration. So it outputs in frames, and we can convert that to seconds, which is what our delays counted in. And we could figure this out by opening our sequence, checking the frames per second. We have it set to 30 frames per second. So it's 125 frames. So we can just get an integer, the amount of frames divided by our frames per second. So just get a float, make literal float right here, 30 frames per second. So we'll get the number divided by 30, and that should give us the length. So once that's completed, we'll get our main HUD ref, and we'll set the visibility back to non-hit testable, self-only. So we can test that out by hitting play, getting jump scared, just walking past it, and let's test this out. So let's watch our HUD. Goes away when it starts, plays, and it ends, and our HUD comes back. So perfect. That is how you create a cutscene in a game. There's, the sequencer in Unreal Engine is very advanced, and that's just only the beginning of what it can do. But this episode's getting a little long, so we're going to cut it off there. And hopefully that gets you started on cutscenes. I'll see you in the next episode.